Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Neo Soul, who says, I never quite understood why weight is the one thing that decides who fights against who in many fighting sports. Aside from sex, obviously. I see much taller and more muscled guys beat up small, chubby guys in a lot of videos where the small, chubby one seems like he wouldn't stand a chance at all. What's going on here? All right. Sorry, my phone decided to rebel on me and open up a different page. Let's see here. I'm personally working on getting back in shape. I have roughly 50 pounds to lose to be back at my ideal weight. I'm 5'7", around 200 pounds, and I should be down to around 150, 155 maybe. If I were to enter such a fight, I would probably get absolutely crushed by a much taller guy who's in a more athletic shape, and I don't see how me having some fat to lose is supposed to make up for that. I mean, I doubt my punches and kicks will be weaker if I manage to lose weight. All right, Neo Soul, thanks for the question. Interesting observations there, and yeah, man, that's awesome that you are getting out there and training, and all the best to you in your pursuit of excellence, right? Keep training and you will see those goals met. But as to your question, why is it that weight is the big deciding factor besides, men's sports and women's sports? Well, how else would we do it? Would we have a measure of lean body mass, measure how much people's skeletons weigh, measure their strength before we put them in a cage fight with each other? I mean, we could, and that could make for some very compelling matches, but it also overcomplicates things in many ways and opens up all kinds of new pathways for cheating. For example, if the parameter, instead of weight classes, we had strength classes, right? And we pitted all the guys who could deadlift a certain amount and do a certain number of pull-ups and squat so much and sprint this far or whatever. We put all the really athletic guys together. And then we put the weaklings in their own division. We had the tough guy division and the weakling division, something like that. How would that go over? Well, what if one of those tough guys decided during the assessment, hey, I don't have to do 20 pull-ups. I can just pretend to be a weakling. I don't have to squat 3 times my body weight. I'll pretend I can barely lift the bar. Then the tough guy goes into the weakling division and squishes everybody. And suddenly, yeah. I don't know, how would we do it except for weight? Now here's the assumption with weight classes. The assumption is that these are athletes. These are finely tuned athletes. And every pound on that scale is supposed to represent athleticism, the most economic use of space on the human body, if you will. So, yes, you are correct. Fat guys are at a disadvantage. Not all the time, but most of the time. Sure, there are some outliers out there, some fat guys who are successful fighters, okay? But these guys are also athletes. They're fat athletes with some fat over the top of that muscle. They're fat guys with that fat over that respiratory system that is able to work under those conditions. They're not just bums who've never been in a fight before, pulling themselves off the couch, dusting the potato chip crumbs off them. This is different. So again, the assumption is that these are guys who have been putting in the work. And so when they step on the scales, we are expecting to see 2 athletes with the most economical use of weight on their frame. Now, if you spent your time preparing for that fight by doing athletic things that give you an athletic body, and you step on that scale weighing, let's say, 155 pounds, weighing in for the lightweight division, and your opponent has not spent that time doing athletic things to create that athletic body, and he is fat and weak and slow? Well, my friend, that's part of the fight. That's probably the biggest part of the fight. Right there. Life is a fight, my friend. I say this all the time. And I coach professional fighters, I coach amateur fighters, and I also coach a much larger number of normal people who come to me to help me facilitate the process of winning their fight. And sometimes that fight is as simple as get up off the couch and do something athletic that particular day to help them feel better about their lives. Sometimes that process is lose some weight. Take that strain off their heart so that they can move more efficiently and feel better throughout the day. Not everybody needs to get in a cage fight. Not everybody needs to be a professional or even an amateur. Great if you do. Awesome. And if you don't, no problem there either. Fighting is not egalitarian. It's probably the least egalitarian thing you can do. So out there in the world, especially in the West, in the United States, there's a lot of talk about fat shaming. Okay, I get that. We should not shame people and we should not try to hurt people's feelings. We shouldn't be mean to people or unjust to people. Absolutely not. If there is a fat guy and a skinny guy and they're both qualified for the job, we shouldn't ignore the fat guy because he's fat, right? Because that's unjust and unfair. It's not egalitarian, right? But fighting is not egalitarian. It's not. It's the polar opposite of that. The guy who has the gifts, the athletic gifts, and sometimes those are athletic gifts that he has taken by force upon himself, that's the guy who wins. The guy who has more wins. Now, we don't all start at the same level, right? You're starting at this point in your life, overweight, you have 50 pounds you want to lose, right? And that's a battle, that's a struggle, that's a fight. Okay, yeah. And there's another guy out there who already weighs like 155, who could probably destroy you right now. He's athletic, he's mean, he's lean, he's gifted, he's talented, right? And you're in that same potential weight class in the future, right? So what do you do? What do you do? Well, envision that guy. Envision that guy in your mind who is better than you. You want to step on that scale the day before the fight. You want to weigh in with the most economic use of mass to weight ratio. Mass being the, I shouldn't have to explain mass. It's how much stuff there is on your body, right? You want to get into that fight being the best you possibly can. And that takes work. That takes a lot of work, man. It's not egalitarian. You're going to have to put in more work than that guy who already has the gifts. You are going to have to put in more work than the guy who already has more than you do. You're going to have to do more than he does. It's going to be a harder uphill battle for you to lose that fight than it's going to be for him to win that fight. That is how inegalitarian fighting is. And for some reason, that challenge is what makes fighting so incredibly compelling. That challenge that spits in your face and says, "You're not good enough. You can't. You're down here. He's up there. Stay in your lane. And that indomitable, stubborn will of the human spirit says, no! And so you rise up, and you dust off those crumbs. Right. And you put in the work. And you envision that guy who doesn't have to work as hard as you do because life is not fair. And you work harder. And you do what you can, and you do what you must. And fight time comes, and maybe you win with your hand raised at the end, and maybe you don't. But guess what? You won a major battle, if you made it that far. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.